Welcome back to the playbook. Thanks for tuning in today. Today's conversation is one that we don't usually have in real estate, and that's what happens beyond the transaction, the lessons, the growth, the human side of working with people during the biggest decision of their lives. Today's guest, she serves the Inland Empire and San Gabriel Valley and brings something a little different to the real estate world. She has a background in hospitality, marketing, and operations. She has been described by her clients as a class act, someone who is intentional and not transactional, and the epitome of a five-star agent. Kayla-Rae Campbell, welcome to the playbook.
Thank you so much. I'm super excited to be here.
Awesome, awesome. So before we jump in, let's start with something light. I love to ask all my guests this question. If you had to
Okay.
teach a cooking class, a singing class, or a dancing class, which one would it be?
I'd be a dance teacher all day. I was a dance teacher for many years, and
Mhm.
so I think that dancing's for everyone and it's fun and it kind of just gets us out of our heads. So anytime I can revisit that, I totally will.
Awesome, awesome. So we're gonna make sure we set up that dance class
Yes.
after
We can
for
do
the
like
view.
dancing and teach people about houses at the same time.
Exactly, exactly. So what originally pulled you into real estate?
For me, I feel like I'd always been really interested in real estate. I think that my professional background was more in a way of dealing with people's everyday life. And at some level, I started to want to have a bigger impact. So I knew that homes would bring stability and it's more knowledge based. And I wanted to make sure that if anyone could help people with finding a home, it would be me because I feel like I would make sure that people really understood what they were getting themselves into. And I really wanted to be a resource to people instead of all these things you hear about real estate agents. And I know that not everyone is that way, but there is a lot of preconceived notions when it comes to real estate. And so I wanted to come in and kind of set my own path and kind of decide that it doesn't need to be that way. So that really drew me in because the biggest difference with anyone, in my opinion, is just having access to the knowledge. Um, how do you get people the information? And I just felt like not enough people have access to people who are going to give them that. So that was my biggest calling was I knew that coming into this field, I could use my existing career experience and really help them kind of go down a path that maybe would be really intimidating. My mom does property management, and you
Wow.
see a lot of different experiences with property management. Housing is where it starts for everyone, and that doesn't matter the age, the income. What you experience at home is what you take into your life, and I really wanted to be part of that.
I agree. I agree. It all does start with housing, and you had touched on an important piece, and so a lot of people kind of think about real estate a certain way. You know, we have all this notion in our minds that real estate is like selling sunset, and before you're in
Hmm.
real estate, you kind of don't really know what you're getting into. So
Hmm.
when you got into it, was there anything that looked different on the outside that's a lot different now that you're in it?
This part for me that was kind of caught me off guard
Hmm.
was having to work with other agents. Um, I had this idea, right, that you get to pick and choose who you work with, and we very much do. You can pick who you work with as a client and if you want to continue working with them or if you don't. But
Hmm.
we are subjected to working with everyone in the industry, and unfortunately, not everyone is of the same importance on the same things. Some people are very much driven towards investment. There's people who are driven towards helping first-time home buyers. There's people who are driven towards helping people who are downsizing. And all of those skill sets are very different. And so you have this hodgepodge of different personalities and people who all have different expectations on how they're going to help people. And it's one thing to turn to a client and say, I'm going to help you go through this process. I think
Mhm.
it's a whole other thing to also tell them, we're in this together because we don't know who or what we're dealing with on the other side. And these are people's homes. This is very personal. And no matter how much business you want to bring to the table, there's emotions. And that is the most difficult part, I think, because um, you cannot prepare or plan for how people react to the things that they're going to experience, and we are helping them, or sometimes they feel we're not helping them with all of their money, and that is what everyone works so hard for. So
Mhm.
it can be a little intimidating, but I think when you start to find the best way to work with your client, whoever that is, then you can kind of start working on what that looks like for you also. And how do you kind of get yourself in the right narrative, because you can't do everything in this industry. You really, in my opinion, you need to really have what you love and what you're good at and stick to it, and don't try to do it all. It that's not what you need to do, but a lot of people try to do it. They try to do everything, and it doesn't always serve them, and it doesn't serve their client.
Exactly, exactly. I always say you don't need to be everything to everybody. You just have to be
Mhm.
the right thing to the right people. Um,
Yes.
when you were starting off early on, was there ever a moment where you're like, "Oh shit, I can't do this," or maybe I should go do something different?
I think for me, I love a challenge, so I feel like I need to be here. But I think the hardest thing for me was trying to help people understand what they have the potential to do for themselves. And for me, it's really hard when people can't understand the information because of their preconceived notions, because of what they see on the news, because of what people in their lives say. And you're
Mhm.
really trying to help them benefit themselves. And it's that human nature. I mean, to me, that's probably the most difficult part, is when you're so close to helping people get where they need to go. And at the end of the day, you can't always get everyone across there for many different reasons, but it's disappointing. And you, for me in housing, I want everyone to have access to housing, but
Mhm.
not everyone is a homeowner, and not everyone wants to take on the responsibility. Not everyone has the credit score. Not everyone understands that an HOA can be a benefit to them. And trying to gather all that information is really hard when you're working with someone for a set period of time. So for me, I always really stress that you need to have a agent, a lender, someone in the field that you can trust, that you can talk to as a person, so that you're not waiting till you're buying a house to start understanding taxes and maintenance and all the things that come with it, because it can be a lot for people, for anyone. And for us as professionals, it's not for us to know everything. It's for us to have access to all the people who can help us build on all these different areas that we're trying to help people take on. And that's a lot for a consumer to come into, especially in a market like ours in Southern California.
Definitely, definitely. Resources, you got to have resources. And,
Hmm.
on our side, you got to have a community, as far as transaction coordinators, processors, a good title
Hmm.
agent,
Yeah.
a good escrow officer. All that makes our job as real estate professionals easier. And that makes the
Hmm.
client's job easier because we're all moving in one direction. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely. Yes.
Excellent,
Yes.
excellent. So, um, I want to pivot for a minute.
Okay.
We had recently been working together on a transaction that unfortunately didn't go the way that we wanted to.
Hmm.
And so, looking back at it without needing to kind of jump all into in too many details, what was
Hmm.
something that you took from that transaction? And then what is some advice that you would give an agent that's maybe dealing with a similar challenging situation?
Okay. So I think that the most important thing to keep our eyes on when we're dealing with situations that sometimes are not what we're expecting or what
Mhm.
we were getting prepared for is to always remember that our job is to help people decide if they want to buy a house. And I think that everyone's time comes in different waves. Sometimes it takes people years to buy, sometimes they buy right away. And for me, I think the emotional part is not our responsibility. And I think that that's really difficult because we can have all the things lined up and everything can make so much sense. And it, in my opinion, sometimes things can be as good as they're going to get. And it doesn't mean that that's what that person needs or what they want or what they're
Yeah.
prepared for. And making sure that we continue to ground ourselves and knowing that our job is to get them the information and make sure that they feel supported to make their own decisions. No matter if we agree or not, it's just not our call. And I think that when you put a lot of time and investment into a transaction, especially if people are not aware, we work for free. And not everyone can work for free and do what they need to do for their client. And it's really important when you're picking an agent or picking a lender that you find someone who's going to support you all the way through, no matter what, because you hear all the time different scenarios. And at the end of the day, it's what the client wants. And I feel like
Mhm.
that was the biggest lesson for me was you and me can partner, we can communicate, we can do all the things, and the end result was there. And it maybe was not the end result we were looking for, but the end result is for what the client wanted. And I think that that is everything that we could have done, and giving ourselves the grace to know that we went through the steps and gave them all the information and helped them decide what they wanted to do. That's the
Yeah.
best thing that we can do.
Yeah, no, I agree. And you touched on an important point as far as doing a lot of work for free. I don't think when
Hmm.
people get into real estate, they understand how much work they're going to be doing for free. People, you hear, oh, you have to do this, you have to do that, and then you get paid at the end of the transaction, but they don't talk about everything that you do. Um,
Mm-mm.
Coming into real estate, did you have an idea that um, I guess things would be this way? I mean, I know from the outside looking in, probably would people would probably say we're crazy for doing all of this for free, but what are your thoughts on that?
I had an inkling. I think it's a lot more than I expected. And I think that
Mhm.
that's probably most things in our industry. But also, just being able to know that it will come around. And I think that you have to have that tuition mindset. We're building relationships. And if you're here to just cash a paycheck, then this is just not the industry for you. Or people, your clients are going to feel that you're there for the paycheck. And you'll notice as a consumer, when you go and talk to agents, you'll know when they're willing to tell you the good, the bad, and the ugly, that they really want you to be informed and that they're helping you. And when everything seems too good to be true, I would question it because there's not rainbows and butterflies in every transaction. There's always things that come up. Homes are
Right.
as unique as the people that live in them. You are inheriting, especially we're in such a high resale market and we are getting a lot more new construction. But a resale home, someone was living there and you're inheriting their budget, their maintenance schedules, their how much do they care about that house? How much can they afford to take care of their house, and these things all come in seasons, and how do you take that on when you are using all your money to qualify and you don't know enough about what you're getting yourself into? It's really intimidating. So
Hmm.
I think that being a person who is okay with being a knowledge broker and making sure that we are pouring into the community and into the people that come in contact with us our best skills will always come back in a different transaction. And it's not just buyer, deal, seller, deal, close. It's buyer, 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 maybe close. Buyer needs 3 years and then we'll close. And you develop these
Exactly, exactly.
intense relationships. And if someone is not doing that with you and that's what you need, then you need to work with the right person. And there are people who qualify no problem, and they come from homeowners and they know what they're doing, and it's not as intimidating for them. Work with who makes sense for you. And
Hmm.
then our job is to tell people what's going on in the industry. And it doesn't matter if you get a check or not. And the more that you are knowledgeable and can help people understand and get them through the door and get them into a home, and start to help them create generational wealth, transactions will come and referrals will come. But you need to, do the hardest part, which is go show 27 houses and then have them work with someone else, or, you know, spend 3 years trying to get them qualified and then they
Wow.
move to Texas. And
Mhm.
these things happen to us all the time and we don't talk about it. And a lot of agents are flaunting their cars and their money. And I think in some form, a consumer does need to see a level of wealth to trust that that person knows what they're doing to help them. But wealth is not visual. And I think in the society we live in, it is painted that way. But when you really start to get into homes and you start to understand, sellers have reasons why they need to sell that sometimes buyers will never understand why they need the
Hmm.
money. And as long as we know how to help them, then those conversations become easier and then your sphere will become larger. So I think you just have to be able to really put in the effort so that you can get the results you're looking for, but know that the job is to help people decide if they want to buy, if they can buy, if they're willing and able to buy. It's not just to find people who qualify.
Yes, yes. Well said. You had mentioned that um, homes are only as unique as the people that live in them. I like that, and
I say
you
that
know,
all the time. That is like my go-to slogan when I'm showing a house because I'm
uh,
like, we don't know what we're walking into, but just know they're all different.
yeah. I mean, people think that real estate is about the homes, but I mean, as we both know, it's about the people. Um,
Hmm.
so you come from a hospitality background. How has that shaped the way that you provide a unique service to your clients?
Hospitality is all of the old school things that you just don't find anymore. So
Hmm.
I'm very lucky to come from hotels and events and food and beverage. And I think that when you take care of people's daughters' weddings and you take care of where people sleep when they're not home every week of the year, I started as a front desk agent and I did night auditing, I did accounting, I did event planning, I did restaurants and menus and all the things. And at the end of the day, people want relationships, they want experiences, they want people to know them. And I feel
Yeah.
like I bring that to real estate in a way that is different than most because I want to build a relationship with people so that even if they're not buying a house, if they just have a question, if they hear something weird and they're like, I need to find out what this means, I want them to call me because you don't know when people need you, but they're gonna need you. And I think hospitality's that way. They're open 24/7 and they're ready to help you all the time. And I think that mindset is not something that exists in most industries. And for me, I get to now not work Christmas and not work Easter, but I'm working around the clock. I'm taking calls at 10 at night, and I'm okay with that because I know that that's when people can talk to me. And
Mm.
I think that those boundaries that sometimes people want to have in real estate, they can't always exist so clean because we're human.
Yeah.
And you don't know when people are going to show up or need you to feed them, needs you to give them information. And the correlation to me between events and real estate was so similar. I was helping people getting married and having baby showers, and these are huge, huge, exciting life moments. I mean, you
Sure.
never get to see parts of people's lives that way. And then
Hmm.
you're helping them celebrate things that they've been looking forward to. And I always really enjoyed being part of those moments. And so now that I get to be part of people buying homes and creating generational wealth for themselves and finding some stability, I mean, to me, there's nothing better than that. But it does have its highs and lows, but I think everything does.
Yeah.
And service is huge. I think that that's the one thing our industry really needs. And I think that that's the thing that sets me apart, not only with clients, but with other agents. I get my offers accepted because I'm going to pick up the phone, whether it's good or bad. I'm going to have a conversation with whoever's on the other line. And I don't know that many people that want to do that. And it's not that you want to, it's that you owe everyone in a transaction the respect of being the person that they thought they were working with. And I think that that all really started with me working with hospitality.
Hmm. Yeah. A lot of times it's not necessarily who's the best agent or who's the best loan officer. A lot of times it's whoever just picked up the phone, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Speed.
Just knowing that there's a human on the other side and that they can take 2 minutes to say, hey, this is what's going on. And to me, update, even if there's nothing to update about. I mean, we have buyers who are on edge waiting for information. The least we can do as agents is tell them nothing happened. And
Yes.
I think a lot of people do not do that. So I think everyone, whether it's an agent, whether it's a title rep, whether it's a lender, everyone is owed the respect of being serviced in whatever their role is. And to me, it's really important that everyone knows what's going on.
Definitely, definitely. A couple more questions. You had mentioned
Okay.
that you need a certain type of mindset um, to be in this industry. In regard to working with people, what
Mhm.
type of mindset do you think is required?
I think the mindset needs to be that what we're doing is has nothing to do with us.
Hmm.
And
Wow.
we do so many things acting like everything is about us in this industry. And there's a lot of ego and there's a lot of money involved and there's a lot of capitalizing on information and people. And I think that sometimes that doesn't give you the best reputation or allegiance to what we're doing. But when you really start to get into the nitty gritty of it all, we are the people who set the tone for people's experiences. And it's like if you go to the store and you have like a horrible person just breathing down your neck and you're like, I'm just looking around. And they're like, but you could try this on, but you could buy
Yeah.
this, but you could do this. And I think that that kind of energy is not good and there's a place for it. If that's who you are and you're in real estate, go work with investors. They'll love you. But not first time home buyers, and
Hmm.
just knowing who the client is and knowing how to wear the hats that are required for the people that are in front of you and being flexible, I think is the best qualities we could have as agents because laws are changing all the time.
Yep.
People can have a job one day and not a job the next day,
Yep.
and that's life. And if you can't be okay with those things, then you really can't be in the industry because you're going to be angry all the time. And I think if you know that that's life and you can embrace it, then this industry becomes so much more magical because you know, after this many clients and this many conversations, I
Yeah.
will change someone's life. And that's a
Hmm.
great way to think about it. But you have to be willing to put yourself there and know that your goals are based on how hard you're willing to work and how much information you're willing to learn. And that's a self, You have to be very self-motivated to want to keep up with all these things and be willing to deal with rejection.
I agree. I agree. There's a lot of days where, things don't go your way, but at the end of the day, as you mentioned, you just got to get up, put
Hmm.
one foot after the other and keep going because, you strike out however many times you're gonna be able to hit that ball. If you keep swinging, you're gonna be able to hit that ball with the fence eventually. So, um,
Absolutely. Absolutely. I
last
love the
question.
sports analogy because sports is like the key. You can
Yeah.
compare anything in business to me to sports. You need to be disciplined, you need to have your mind right. You're a team player, you're not a solo player. And our mindset needs to be so strong that all of the factors do not deter us from our goal, for sure.
Exactly. Next shot mentality.
Yep.
For anyone watching this feeling overwhelmed with buying or selling, what would you want them to understand? And this is a two-part question. If you're on the agent side
Okay.
or if you're on the buyer side.
So I think that the main thing I'd want someone to understand is that you're never going to be fully prepared. And I think that buying a home is kind of one of those things people really want to be prepared for. And unfortunately, like most things in life, you learn as you go. And that's why it's really important that you're open to having conversations and you're open to kind of questioning what's being said in the news or being said by people. Because once you can start to kind of decipher between what does that mean and what is this, and you really start to get the information, it's
Yeah.
so easy to know that's not right, or I should look into this a little bit more. And the
Hmm.
more confidence that you get as a consumer of the market, then the better you're going to feel taking the leap into knowing that this is going to work out for you. But
Hmm.
if you don't understand that a home is one of the best ways for you to create stability, then buying a home, you're not there yet. But go find out why. Go talk to your tax person and go look at yourself, look at your schedule. Say, would I want to cut grass or do I not want to cut grass? Do I want a pool or do I not? Because if you want an HOA, don't listen to the 700 people who think HOAs are horrible.
Hmm.
There's HOAs for a reason and there's great benefits to them. But I think a lot of people are constantly listening to all of the information. And the reason why there's so much information about it is because it's so important and people are going to listen. They're talking about it on the news because they know that people want to know. And we all know not everyone has the right narrative, and not everyone's narrative is for you. So I think a consumer just needs to start getting the information slowly, start having the conversations so that you feel confident enough to know when something is for you or not. Because if you can do that to prepare, then I think it'll be a lot more of an enjoyable experience.
Hmm.
And if you can just know that it will work out, if you do what it requires, then it'll be okay. But you don't get $500,000 worth of equity without investing a lot of money and time and years and years into a home. And people see they bought this house for X amount of dollars. Listen, they've put a lot of probably money into those houses. They pay taxes on those houses, and the economy has worked for them. So you're judging them for something that you want instead of saying, I need to get into this market so I can have that too. I think they just have to be okay taking on the responsibility of being a homeowner, and then you can understand why people do it.
Yeah, yeah. Gotta have some skin in the game. There's
You
gonna be
have to.
risk and it's expensive on both sides, whether you're
Hmm.
renting or you're buying, but only one of those builds wealth at the end of the
Exactly.
day. And
And something I always tell people is you don't need to live in the home that you own. People are so caught up on the fact, I don't know where I'm going to live. I don't know what's going to happen. That's why people own rental properties. Because even if you have one rental property that you would never live in, and it's a one-bedroom house, and you want to live in some really nice city and you can't afford a house there, but you can afford the rent, that's wonderful. Have a write-off and have something that is building equity for you because those differences are what set you apart financially. And
There you
it's
go.
the same with an HOA. It's like you don't want responsibility, then pay the HOA so that you don't have to cover all these extra costs. When you buy a house that's a single family because you're avoiding paying an HOA,
Hmm.
you have so much more costs that you're going to have to pay to maintain that home. And if you don't want to do that, you're getting all your money in this asset and letting it depreciate on you. So I think just being honest with yourself about what work you're willing to do and knowing that
Yeah.
there's properties for every single tier of people and being strategic and having an agent who's okay with that. I have clients who can qualify up to 800,000, $1 million, and they're like, I'm not buying a house more than 675. Okay. It's not my job to decide what they can spend on a house. But
Yeah.
some people would be like, well, you can buy this. At the end of the day, people need what they need. It's not our job to decide. And if they can at least know where they stand, that's why you need a tax professional, right? You need to have these conversations with
Yeah.
yourself. Then the
Resources.
assets become amazing. But when you can't afford it because you don't have the conversations and you don't know what you're doing, that is how people have horrible experiences. When you hear about people having bad experiences with homes, it's probably because they didn't do their homework on what they were purchasing. And that is the most unfortunate thing that happens in our industry, I think, is when people don't question any of the things and they see a house, they buy the house, they live in the house for 50 years, but then they didn't know that they had to maintain the asset. And
Yeah.
I know it's your home, but you need to think of it more like a business in
Investment.
a
Hmm.
way that you don't usually want to, especially if you're owner occupied, because that is also what's going to get you retirement money. That's why people buy homes for stability, not just to say, like, look, I own a home, but that's what people think it is. And I question that on a high level.
They don't buy them thought they buy them to paint the walls.
Hmm. Because I want to
Um,
be able to do this. And you do, right? You want to be able to customize and you want to be able to have what you want, but you're buying the land, you're buying location. And if you don't prioritize the fact that this is an investment for yourself, then you let your human interfere with the fact that this is what you're counting on. You pour all your money in, you spend all your time paying for it. You should know how to take care of it to the best of your ability. Whether you're a professional or a consumer, it doesn't matter. This is information is public. Everyone is allowed to have a real estate agent and a lender on call. You should have someone like that. You should never be finding someone when you're going into a transaction. To me,
mhm.
you should have people that you know and you like them and you are comfortable talking to them all the time so that you're always preparing yourself for the next level because you don't know when that's going to be.
Exactly. Exactly. Period.
Hmm.
Where can people find you, Miss Kayla-Rae?
You can find me on Instagram. I am Kayla-Rae Campbell, RE, and I'm on YouTube and TikTok. I'm very much into architecture and history and civil rights, and I feel like education is huge for me. So if you're
Mhm.
interested in learning about those things, I'd love to see if I can help you see how the market's evolved, where it's going, and how it would impact you.
There you have it. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of The Playbook. Thank you so much, Miss Kayla-Rae, for joining us and providing so much great insights and knowledge and information for everybody that's going to be watching. So thank you so much. Let's
Thank you
do it
for
again.
having me. It's
Uh,
so nice to be here and talk to you about something we are both so passionate about. And I know for both of us, education is key. So if anyone needs a lender, he's your guy. but we're here to help. And there's so many people in this world. If you don't like an agent or you don't like a lender, go to the next one and keep finding one until you feel comfortable. Don't let one person deter you from financial freedom.
There you go. Signing off. Till next time. Thank you.
Bye.